In this class, we are going to start our discussion on the most powerful class of automata, namely Turing machines. So before we start looking at Turing machines, we shall recollect the various classes of automata that we discussed in this course. From each class of automata, we will be recalling the structure of the automata, what a transition is in the concerned class of automata, and also we shall recollect the language acceptance criteria for each class of automata. So the topic for today is Introduction to Turing machines. So before we see Turing machines, let us recollect the different classes of automata we studied. The first class of automata that we have discussed was about finite state automata. So what are the structural components in a finite state automata? There are only two components. The first one is the read-only input tape, where the read head moves only to the right. So we have a finite length input tape, and the number of cells that we are going to use is the length of the input string, and the read head can only move to the right. And the second component is a control unit with a finite set of states in it, and each state can remember finite amount of information about the processed input. For example, a state can remember whether the number of A's processed so far is even or odd. So these are the two structural components in a finite state automata. Now, what is a transition function in a finite state automata? We can try to recall it using an example transition function. So here is an example. It says if you are in the state S, and if you read the input symbol small a, then you change your state to small q. So if you apply this transition on this configuration of the finite state automaton, then you will get this configuration. That is, the state is changed from S to Q as it is defined by the transition relation, and the input is read and read head is positioned to the next symbol in the right. So that is a transition relation, and formally you can define it as a function from the Cartesian product of state and alphabet to the state set. That is, from the current state for the current input symbol, what is the next state is what the transition function is defining. Now, we can look at the language accepted by a finite state automata. Now, suppose the given finite state automaton starts its execution or computation in this initial configuration where the state is the start state, read head is positioned to the first symbol in the input tape, and when this particular input is accepted is when the final configuration reaches this. That is, after finitely many moves, 0 or moves, the input is completely processed and you are in a state F, which is a final state. So the input is in the language if and only if when you finish reading the input, you are in a final state. So that is the acceptance criteria. And formally, you can say that the language is the set of all input strings W such that the processing of the input string W from the start state ends in a final state. Hope you remember the extent of transition function definition, and using that we define the language accepted. So, this is the first class of automata that we discussed, and the next class of automata that we have discussed was about push down automata. Now, let us look at the structural components in it. So, these are the structural components. There are three. First is the finite length input state, same as in the case of finite state automata. Second component is the control unit with finitely many states, again same as that of the finite state automata. And in addition to these two components, which defines a finite state automata, a push down automata is getting an additional component, which is a stack, which can be used as an intermediate storage. So, this is the only additional component that you added to a finite state automaton to get a push down automaton. Now, let us recollect what a transition relation is in a push down automata. Recall that now we are recalling the transition relation in a non-deterministic push down automata, and that is why it is a transition relation, not a function. We can try to look at it by an example transition relation. I hope you remember this notation. This says if you are in the state small s and if you are having small a as the current input simple, and if you have bottom as the topmost simple in the stack, that is you are in the state S, small a is going to be the next input, and on the top of stack you have this simple. Then the transition is telling you, you change your state from S to Q in the control unit, and you replace the top of stack symbol, which is bottom, with this string of stack symbol. So, bottom is going to be replaced with a string ABC, and more formally this transition relation can be represented as Q comma ABC is an element of the transition relation. That means there could be a number of moves possible because it is a relation and non-deterministic, and one of the move is this. Please don't get confused about it, and that is the more formal representation. So, maybe this is more easy for you to now recall what a transition relation is. And if you fire this transition relation in the current configuration of the push down automaton, you know that you are going to change your state to Q, and you are going to position your read head to the next symbol, and you are going to replace the top of stack symbol with this string. So, this is going to be the next configuration when you apply this transition. State is changed to Q, read head is positioned to the next symbol, and this bottom of stack symbol is replaced with ABC. Not that the rightmost symbol goes as the bottommost symbol when you push it onto the stack. And more formally, you can say that transition relation in a push down automata is a finite subset of this Cartesian product. So, that is just a formal representation. Hope you remember it, otherwise please refer to it. Now, we can look at the language accepted by push down automata. If you remember, we have discussed about two different acceptance criteria for push down automata, and later we proved that both the acceptance criteria are equivalent, and the criteria are acceptance by empty stack and acceptance by final state. And here I am trying to recall the empty stack acceptance. If you remember, if the push down automata begins its execution from the initial configuration with the start state as the state, read head positioned on the first simple and only bottom of stack simple on the stack, which is the starting configuration on a given input for a push down automata. By empty stack, if you accept this string if and only if, you reach into this final configuration where you finish reading your input. At that time the stack is empty. So in this criteria, you are not worrying about the status of the state, whether it is final or not. You are only looking at the stack, and if it is empty when you finish reading the input, then the input is said to be accepted. So what we are saying is, the input is in the language of the push down automaton if and only if the stack is empty when you finish reading your input. More formally, the language is the set of all input strings W, such that when you start your computation in this configuration, in the initial configuration for W, where bottom of simple is the only content of the stack, you are in the start state, and suppose you eventually reach into a configuration where you are in some state, you finished reading your input. If you remember, the middle component of the triple defining a configuration is the remaining part of the input to be processed. Epsilon means the input is completely processed, and this is the content of the stack, and that is empty. That is, when you finish reading your input, if the stack is empty, then the given input is said to be accepted, and that's the acceptance for a push down automaton. And after push down automaton, we discussed about the next class of automata, and which is about linear bounded automata. And if you recall, the structural components are these. First is the control unit with finite number of states in it, same as in the case of the other two classes of automata. And here, unlike in the case of the previous two classes of automata, here it is a read and write tape. So you can read the input symbol, and also you can replace that symbol with any other symbol in the tape alphabet. So that is a difference. And another point about the input tape is that the read write head, this is read and write, this is for both read operation and for write operation, can move either to the left or to the right. That is, if you are here, then in the current step in the computation, you may either move your read write head to the right symbol or to the left symbol. And not that, if you are already here, your read write head pointing to the leftmost symbol, which is demarked with the left hand marker, then the left move is not allowed. Otherwise, left and right moves are allowed. And the third point, the tape is initially assumed to contain the input string. Here it is A square, B square, C square, delimited with the left hand marker in the left, and this is called a blank symbol in the right. And after that, until you reach the last symbol of the tape, all symbols are going to be the blank symbol. So initially the input just after the left hand marker followed by a string of blank symbols, and that is going to be the initial content of the tape. And the next point, if you recall, if the input size is n, then the number of cells in the tape which the machine can use is bounded by a linear function of n. For example, suppose there exist two natural numbers k1 and k2, then here you can see that the length of the input is 6, a square, b square, c square. Then the total number of cells that the machine can use during its computation is bounded by a linear function of 6. You know that a linear function of 6 is a multiplication of 6 with a natural number plus a natural number. This is a generic representation. And because of this restriction on the tape, you are allowed to use only a bounded number of cells, and the number is actually a linear function of the input size. And that is why this automata is named as linear bounded automata. And the last point, the machine can scan the input in left and right directions any number of rounds. So maybe you can go all the way to the right, come back and repeat any number of times. So this is the structure of a linear bounded automata. Recall that if you just look at the structure, you feel it like a component is removed when you compare it with the push down automata, because there was an extra component. And remember that in that case, you are not allowed to write into the tape, but here you are allowed to do that. And we saw that this machine is more powerful than push down automata. If you remember, we had designed a linear bounded automata for the language a to the power n, b to the power n, c to the power n, for which we proved that no push down automata exists. So for the structural components is fine. Now let us proceed and see what a transition function is. Here again we are defining a deterministic machine, and that is why I say a transition function, not a relation. Let us try to recall the transition function definition in terms of an example. Suppose you are in the state small s, and small a is the next symbol on the tape, and not that it may not be an input symbol, because during the computation you are allowed to replace an input symbol with some other symbol on this tape alphabet. So this need not be always an input symbol, or it could be another symbol also. So if you are in the state S, and if you have small a as its current tape symbol, then what do? Change your state to Q, replace small a with a capital A, and position your read write head to the next symbol in the left. Capital L means move to the left one symbol. So if you apply this transition, what you are doing, changing your state to Q, replacing the small a with capital A, and positioning your rewrite here to the symbol less to the current symbol. So that's it. And more formally, the transition function structure is this: from the current state, for the current input symbol, what is the next state, what symbol is going to replace the current symbol, whether you are going to move to the left symbol or to the right symbol. So that is the transition function definition. Now we can proceed and see what language is accepted by a linear bounded automata. And before that, let us recall the nature of the two states that we introduced or discussed as a part of the definition of LBA, that is the states T and R, and these are sync states. If you recall, you know that T is the accept state and R is the reject state, and they are sync states in the sense that once the machine gets into one of these states, it stays in that state forever. That is, if a linear bounded automaton is getting into T, then it has to remain in T forever. Maybe you can move left and right and change this impulse, but you cannot come out of the state T. Similar case for R as well. And note that T is the accept state and R is the reject state. And with this, let us proceed and see what language is represented by a linear bounded automata. And if you start your computation from the initial configuration, that is with the start state, read write head positioned on the first symbol, that is actually the left hand marker. And suppose eventually you get into a configuration where your state is T. You know that because T is a sync state, once you get into T, you will remain in T forever. So unlike in the case of finite state automata and put down automata, here you need not even have to finish reading your input. The moment you are getting into T, you can say that the input is accepted. So it doesn't matter where the where the read write head is positioned. If you reach into the state T, then it is accepted. So the input here it is A square, B square, C square is in the language if and only if the processing goes to the state T. If the processing takes the automaton into the state T, then it is accepted. Similarly, suppose you give the input say A square, B square, C, and it eventually gets into a configuration where the state is the reject state, then you can say that it is not in the language. That is, the input string is not in the language if and only if the processing takes you to the reject state R. You know that it is also a sync state, so you cannot move out of the state R once you get into R. More formally, language L is the set of all input string W such that if you start your computation on W from the start state, then eventually you will get into the state T with some content on the tape. It doesn't matter what the content is and where the read write head is. So this is the language acceptance criteria for linear bounded automata. So after recalling the three different classes of automata that we have learned, now we are going to discuss about the next class of automata. So the name is Turing machine because it's proposed by Alan Turing. And now we can try to look at the structural component in a Turing machine. It's very similar to linear bounded automaton. It is a control unit with finitely many states, same as in the case of any other class of automaton that we have discussed. And now you have a semi-infinite read write tape. Semi-infinite means it is infinite to the right direction. So the Turing machine is empowered to utilize infinitely many cells on the tape during its computation. So, this is the structural component which makes this machine the most powerful machine. So, it is semi-infinite. Why it is semi-infinite? Because it is not infinite to both the left and right. The left end is bounded. The left end is marked here as the end of the tape with a left hand marker. And to the right, you can go all the way always, no limit. And second point, same as in the case of linear bounded automaton. You can move your read-write head either to the right or to the left, but left movement is not allowed if you are already in the leftmost cell. The machine can scan the input any number of rounds by moving left and right. These 2 points are same as that of the linear bounded automaton. And also remember that in the case of linear bounded automata, the right movement was not allowed from the rightmost impulse, and the only structural difference in the case of a Turing machine when compared to linear bounded automata is that here there is no right bound. The right side is open. You can go to the right without any bound on the number of cells that you are allowed to use in a Turing machine. So, this is a very simple machine as far as the structure is concerned, but it is going to be the most powerful machine that we will see later. Why is it that it is most powerful? Now, let us look at the transition relation. It's same as in the case of linear bounded automaton, no difference. If you are in the state S and if small a is the tape impulse, then you change your state to Q, replace small a with capital A and move to the left. So, this is what you are doing when you apply this transition on this configuration. State is changed from S to Q, the current symbol is replaced with capital A and the read-write head is positioned to the symbol to the left of the current position. That is it. So, we have seen the formal structure of the transition function, and so this is exactly same as that of a linear bounded automaton. Also, the states T and R are sync states. This also is same as in the case of a linear bounded automaton. Now, proceed and see the language accepted. Here again the criterion is same as that of a linear bounded automaton. You are accepting the input, say A square, B square, C square, if you are reaching the state T during the computation. So, it does not matter where the read-write head is positioned and what the content of the tape is. If you reach into T, you are accepting. And if you are starting in this configuration for this input and if you are reaching the state R, then you are rejecting. So, the acceptance criterion is again same. So, this is the formal definition. If the computation reaches a configuration with the state as T, then regardless of the tape content and regardless of the read-write head position, you are accepting. So, the only difference when compared to the linear bounded automata is the unbounded tape to the right. That is the only difference. Here you are not restricted to use finitely many cells on the tape. You can use infinitely many tapes. So, that is the Turing machine. And with this, now we can try to formally look at the definition of the Turing machine, which also is very similar or almost same as the definition of the linear bounded automata, except that there is no right hand marker. So you can define a Turing machine as a tuple of this structure where capital Q is the finite set of states, sigma is a finite set of input alphabets, and gamma is a superset of sigma, is a finite set of tape alphabets. Note that you may have to replace your input symbol with another symbol. All such symbols which goes on to the tape is represented by gamma, and hence that has to be a superset of the input alphabets, because every input needs to be stored in the tape depending on the input that you want to process. And this component is the start state, then the transition function from the current state for the next tape symbol. What is the next state? What symbol is going to replace the current symbol, and your direction of move as right or left. Then this is a special tape symbol called the left hand marker. There is another special symbol on the tape which is called the blank symbol. Then the sync state for acceptance, the sync state for rejectance, and that's it. So the only component which is not there is the right hand marker. That is the only difference in the formal definition, and not that T and R are sync states as in the case of linear bounded automata. So in this lecture we have recollected the various classes of automata that we have learned in this course, about finite state automata, about the class of pull down automata, and about the class of linear bounded automata. And later we looked at Turing machines, and we saw that Turing machines are very similar in structure to a linear bounded automata. The only difference is that in the case of a Turing machine, the tape is unbounded to the right. So it's a semi-infinite tape, and that is the only difference. Otherwise, the transition relation, definition, or the acceptance criterion are all same, and in the formal definition, the only difference is that there is no right hand marker. And with this, we are finishing this lecture, and in the next lecture, we will be discussing about the design of Turing machines. Thank you.